Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making a brief but strategically significant visit to the United Arab Emirates this afternoon as part of his five-nation tour, which will of course take him to UAE, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway and Italy. And we on DD India are very, very glad to bring to you this very special presentation, India-UAE Fueling the Future. I'm Sakal Bhatt and with me is my very dear colleague Marklin. Remember, it's a very tight and precise trip it comes at a time when there's a shifting landscape, tightly packed 3-hour visit to UAE, which underscores the depth and importance of India-UAE ties amid a shifting West Asia landscape, which I just mentioned. And his arrival, which we're expecting in a while from now, comes at a moment when both nations, Mark, are kind of exhilarating cooperation across trade. These are very important sectors: energy, technology, regional security. And we must tell our viewers that India is not just a partner, but a very structural pillar of the UAE's 2031 and 2050 visions, which kind of supports the diversification, the energy transition, technology and much more.
Energy in the relationship as well. Yes, in fact, the UAE is looking to build on its economy. And that is, they want non-fuel based economy activities to build up. And they see India as a long-term partner.
Absolutely.
And during this short but brief high-impact visit, Prime Minister Modi is going to hold key discussions with the UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. There's going to be MOUs that are going to be signed. And that's going to take the relationship, which, as we said, is anchored in this long-term vision, to new heights. And they will also review the ongoing strategic projects that the two countries have. They're going to reinforce India's commitment to this, this most vital Gulf partnership. And all eyes will now be on Abu Dhabi. The Prime Minister will be reaching there in a short while and for this focused diplomatic engagement.
Absolutely. And we on DD India are going to keep a very sharp focus on the deliverables and the high impact but short trip and much more. So let's begin. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as we've just mentioned, has embarked on a five-nation tour this morning. He will be visiting UAE, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway and Italy. And Prime Minister Modi's first stop will be United Arab Emirates. DD India's Siddharth Bharadwaj brings us more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will pay an official visit to the United Arab Emirates on 15th May 2026. His visit is being viewed as a reflection of India's growing strategic influence amid changing global dynamics. During the visit, PM Modi will meet the President of the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The two leaders are expected to deliberate on energy cooperation, trade, investment and regional as well as international issues. Discussions will also focus on further strengthening the India-UAE comprehensive strategic partnership, which is built on strong political, cultural, economic and people-to-people ties. Over the last 10 years, India-UAE relations have reached new heights. The bilateral trade has continued to grow, while cooperation in energy, infrastructure, technology and investment has expanded rapidly.
Over the past decade, as you know, the relationship has evolved into a very comprehensive strategic partnership. And it has been, the one person instrumental in that has been Prime Minister, under whose leadership over this past decade, the personal friendships which he has built with the leadership of the UAE, especially President His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, which has been the key factor in driving forward this partnership.
UAE is India's third largest trading partner, seventh largest source of investment in India, over 4.5 million Indians living in the UAE. Bilateral trade crossed $100 billion in fiscal year 2024-25. Ties elevated to a comprehensive strategic partnership in 2017. Bilateral investment treaty signed in February 2024. CEPA signed on 18th February 2022. India-UAE MOU on local currency settlement system. During Prime Minister Modi's visit, issues related to the welfare and interests of the Indian community are also likely to be discussed.
This visit by the Prime Minister will certainly give an impetus to the already strengthened ties between both nations, and also will open new avenues for cooperation and collaboration across various sectors. With camera person Saurabh Bakshi, this is Siddharth Bharadwaj reporting for DD India in UAE.
Well, India's ambassador to the UAE, Deepak Mittal, in an exclusive conversation to DD India, spoke about the UAE how it has been a very significant partner for India in the energy security of our country. And perhaps it's the first and only country so far that has participated in the strategic petroleum reserves of India.
I think UAE is one of the very important partners for India in our energy security. UAE has been supplier of almost 11% of our crude requirements last year, making it as a fourth largest supplier of crude. UAE meets the largest demands for India in terms of the cooking gas, LPG, nearly meeting 40% of our requirements.
In fact, he also underlined the role of Indian diaspora in consolidating bilateral ties, calling them a living bridge between the two countries.
5 million Indians, the largest anywhere in the world, as in terms of passport holders, they form a very strong backbone of this partnership between India and UAE. So today they form a very important economic bridge. Yeah. They form a very important cultural bridge. They form a very important bridge of trust. And it's a strong foundation on which this comprehensive economic partnership continues to grow.
And as Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting the UAE, one landmark in Abu Dhabi has emerged as a powerful symbol of the growing partnership between the two countries. It's the BAPS Hindu Mandir. Let's take a look at this report.
Amid the desert landscape of Abu Dhabi stands a monument that is now being seen as a symbol of friendship between India and the UAE, the BAPS Hindu Temple. Built with traditional Indian architecture, the temple is the first traditional Hindu stone temple in the UAE capital. Spread across nearly 27 acres, the temple is regarded as the biggest example of the UAE leadership's religious tolerance and its growing partnership with India. For millions of Indians living in the Gulf, the temple is more than a religious site.
So it was 14th February 2024 when this temple was inaugurated by our respected Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Since then, around 4 million visitors have visited this temple from different parts of the world. Every day we have thousands of visitors. And what better example than this temple that you are seeing here between the friendship of India and UAE. It has grown, and as you see, Prime Minister is visiting UAE for the 8th time. This is the place which has brought harmony, tolerance, and the message of India, which is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is the same message which this temple is taking.
Since its inauguration, nearly 4 million devotees and tourists have visited the temple. What makes it special is that not only Indians, but people from different countries and faiths also come here. The BAPS Hindu Temple has now emerged as a major center for interfaith dialogue, cultural events, and social interaction. The temple was built on land gifted by the UAE leadership, a gesture widely seen as reflecting the trust and warmth in India-UAE ties.
Almost I'm living here more than 20 years here, and this was our dream. It's a Bahut Sundar Mandir idhar aa gaya because of the BAPS full team and the local government. They have given the great permission, and with our Prime Minister, everybody working together as a team here, and this was our dream Mandir. And when we get this Mandir, we feel like our own home.
This temple has brought all the Indian communities together. Various different communities come here to celebrate their festivals, their occasions over here, like Ganesh Chaturthi, Janmashtami, Rath Yatra, and many more festivals. More than 45 lakh Indians are staying here, and the Mandir has brought all the Indian people together. In addition to Indian, there are 200 different nationalities who are staying in UAE, and many different nationality people also visit temple, and they are very delighted to see the architecture and the divine feeling that they get by visiting here. We are very thankful to the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Bhai Modi, for all his vision and for all his efforts and for all the friendship that the UAE and India has.
What you see today is a result of the wonderful and very deep relationship of our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Without their intimate relationship this would not have been possible in this part of the world. So for the 4.5 million Indians who call UAE their home, this is a place of worship, a place of faith where people can come and rejoice. And more than anything else, it has deepened the relationship between India and the UAE.
For the Indian diaspora, which numbers over 4.5 million in the UAE, the temple carries deep emotional significance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the UAE once again underlines the importance both nations place on their strategic partnership. While trade, investment and regional security remain key pillars of the relationship, the BAPS temple represents another dimension of diplomacy.
I'm in Abu Dhabi, and behind me is a monument which shows the growing ties between India and the United Arab Emirates. This is the BAPS Hindu Temple. This temple was inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the year 2024. Built in 27 acres. People from all across the world come here. Since its inauguration, around 4 million visitors have come here. This temple gives a strong message of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. The world is one family. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting in Abu Dhabi on 15th of May 2026, the BAPS Hindu Temple shows how both the countries are culturally connected, and of course, the people-to-people ties between both the countries have tremendously enhanced, especially in the past 10 years. With camera person Senthil and Saurabh, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India in Abu Dhabi, UAE.
Well, Siddharth Bhardwaj is joining us from Abu Dhabi, and we also have Ambassador Pinakaranjan Chakravarti, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, joining us via video link, and Dr. Sriram Cholia, Dean of the Jindal School of International Affairs, is with us in the studio. Siddharth, let's come to you. Put into context what this brief visit is all about. What's the Prime Minister's itinerary like?
First of all, a very good morning to you, Mark. And, this is the first leg of Prime Minister's five-nation tour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be arriving here in a short while from now. And this certainly is a very, very important visit. If you talk about the itinerary, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Both the leaders, apart from the kind of cooperation both the countries have in different sectors, they have a different level of chemistry and friendship, and which, it shows definitely whenever two leaders meet. This time around, it's a very, very significant meet. The reason being the geopolitical situation that we are witnessing in front of us, including the disruptions in global oil supply chains and the crude oil prices soaring. This is a very, very important visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as the two leaders are expected to talk, especially in the area of energy. Mark, that India is diversifying its energy basket. This is a very, very crucial time, and UAE being a key partner to India, especially in the energy sector, this is a very crucial visit. Right. According to some reports, Mark, UAE supplies 11% of India's oil requirements. So keeping that in perspective, it's a very, very important visit. So, both the leaders will talk about the energy sector. Both the leaders will also talk about, the enhancing the bilateral ties between both the countries, which are already strengthened, especially in the last decade. In 2017, when the ties between both the countries were elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership, a different level of elevation that these ties got. Both the leaders will also talk about the welfare of the Indian community. Mark, you all know, as you saw in the report as well, a 4.5 million plus Indian community. It comprises of 35% of the total population of the United Arab Emirates. Largest diaspora with Indian passport holders. Of course, the remittances by the Indian community here is one of the highest in the world.
Right, Siddharth.
When you talk about the trade between both the countries, it has significantly enhanced the
Siddharth,
current trade
yes,
as per
yes,
the financial year
absolutely. We will
2024-25
discuss
stands at
the
over-
overall optics
Yes, Sakal, tell
and
me.
the deliverables and what all is expected and what makes it significant, because we have a very eminent guest lineup on this special broadcast, Ambassador Chakravarti and Sri Ram here in our studio. But before we go to our panel, Siddharth, a quick one. You talked about the people-to-people contact and cultural ties. Would like to understand from you, what's the kind of excitement as far as the diaspora is concerned, the Indians out there? Because whenever Prime Minister touches down on the foreign soil, it's the diaspora which also makes it to the top world headlines, isn't it? The kind of reception accorded to our Prime Minister.
Oh, Sakal, first of all, good to see you back. Definitely, when you talk about the Indian diaspora, they are always very, very excited. You also saw that in the report when we were there at the BAPS temple, which was inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2024. It's not just a temple. It's a monument which is very emotional to people here, especially the Indian community, which is above 4.5 billion. And they're really, really excited. They always give credit to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when it comes to the partnership between India and the United Arab Emirates. Like I was telling you, that the ties between both the countries have strengthened, especially in the past decade. So people here are very, very excited, especially the Indian community, who are hailing Prime Minister Narendra Modi and its visionary leadership, because of which the ties between both the countries have elevated. And like I was just mentioning, Sakal, in 2017, the partnership enhanced to the comprehensive strategic partnership, the elevation in ties. Apart from that, in 2022, a landmark agreement was signed between both the countries, which is Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA. So when you sign CEPA, it means reduced taxes of the goods and greater market access, empowering local artisans as well. Giving an impetus to India's vision of Viksit Bharat and also Make in India. So the diaspora is very, very excitement is always there, Sakal. You rightly mentioned.
Yes.
Right, Siddharth, we'll come back to you once the Prime Minister lands, and we'll talk about some of the greater aspects of the visit with you personally. But let's expand our discussion for context and focus. We have with us Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, former Secretary Ministry of External Affairs, and Dr. Sriram Chaulia, Dean, Jindal School of International Affairs with us. Ambassador Chakravarti, well, Siddharth was talking really about the Indian community. It is really a long-term asset, isn't it? This large Indian community, 3.5 million, 4.5 million for the UAE. And the UAE is transitioning actually from a fossil fuel economy to a non-fossil fuel economy, a knowledge-based economy. To what extent, is the Indian community going to play a significant role in that?
Indeed. Thank you for having me. Indeed, the Indian community is one of the major pillars of the bilateral relationship. Let us not forget their contribution to India's economy in terms of remittances, which is a very large factor in building up our foreign reserves. And secondly, I would say that energy. UAE is the crucial player in our energy security. I think your correspondent has already laid out the figures of how much we depend on the UAE for our energy requirements. And why is it crucial? Because without energy, our economy will be will come to a halt almost, because that is what drives the economy. It is the blood of the economy that keeps it going. Till, of course, as you mentioned, the transition takes place to a non-fossil fuel economy. But that's a long way away. We are nowhere near it. We are doing a lot of work on the renewables, as we say, mainly solar and I think wind energy. So, but I think that's a long-term goal. UAE has also, I think, quit the OPEC. As you know, OPEC is a cartel of oil-producing countries who fix quotas, etc., for each country, managing the price level basically, and demand and supply in the market. Now, UAE has quit the OPEC, which means it will no longer be bound by the quota system that the membership, provides, or the membership, fixes for each country, oil
Right,
producing
sir.
country.
Right.
That means we will be able to import more energy. And the last point I wish to make is
Sure.
that we are looking at, how to bypass the Straits of Hormuz. And there is an option there in UAE where, oil pipelines and the terminals can be built at
Yes.
Fujairah.
Yeah,
which
let me
is-
just take it from there, Ambassador Chakrabarti, because I think Shrira wants to make a point here. The effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and for the fact that the way India, the energy security has been widely impacted by the war there. Do you also think this is essential because UAE is the player that can project India and promote India's long-term interests in the Gulf region? And the messaging of this a short but high impact tour, like in the words of Mark, the messaging and the timings of this particular visit of Prime Minister Modi?
Oh, sure, Sakal. Let me start with messaging and timing. This is the 8th visit of the Prime Minister to the UAE. And if you look at his prime ministerial visits since 2014, he's been to the United States 10 times, France and Japan 8 times, and now UAE 8 times. So effectively UAE, in other words, in our rank ordering of top strategic partnerships, it's right up there. It's the top 3 now. And all the volumes show it. I mean, you talked about the energy, you're right, and we'll go to the details, but the timing is also important because, since the Iran war started in February, hardly anyone has visited the UAE, meaning heads of state or government, because of the air traffic shutdown and, because the UAE has suffered so many attacks on its major installations, thousands of drones and missiles. So in that kind of situation, for Prime Minister to even do a quote unquote a stopover visit of few hours is very significant. It's a vote of confidence in the world's fastest growing economy and rising power in a country that is actually under siege and is struggling, not only because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, but it's all its assumptions about basic security and the US umbrella that protected UAE critical infrastructure. All those assumptions have fallen by the wayside now.
In fact, we have some reactions coming from UAE itself as we take the discussion forward with Ambassador Chakrabarti. Let's quickly listen in now ahead of Prime Minister Modi's UAE visit. UAE's Minister of State for International Cooperation, Reem Al Hashmi, spoke exclusively to DD India, and he explained about the deepening partnership between the two countries and the kind of significance UAE attaches to Prime Minister Modi's this particular visit. Let's listen in.
I don't think you can find a single sector between the UAE and India that is not growing and that is not deepening. And that reflects the strength of the relationship across all levels, whether on the leadership level or, as I mentioned earlier, on the people-to-people level. The CEPA agreement was such a milestone agreement, not only because it was conducted in less than 3 months and finalized, but also because of its scale. We already confirmed $100 billion of trade between both of us, and our leadership have put forward a $200 billion ambition. And as you said, the settlement of currency between the rupee and the dirham is another layer of that strengthened relationship, because what it effectively does is it removes any intermediary player and it removes any additional transactional cost.
In fact, she also highlighted the growing cooperation between India and UAE and how Indian diaspora is playing a very significant role in further strengthening bilateral relationship and expanding cooperation in key sectors.
There's something to be said about how well integrated we are with the Indian community here. They represent such a strong pillar of our own success and growth, and we continue to value them and honor them and rely on them. And what I can say as well.
Well, let's go across once again to Siddharth Bhardwaj, our correspondent who is at Abu Dhabi. Well, Siddharth, as Dr. Cholia was saying here, this this visit comes at a time when there is when West Asia is the focus of attention. Especially, no leader seems to be wanting to go there. And here, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making this visit, and that itself is a political statement. To what extent? I mean, how is that being viewed locally?
Mark, I would like to say that this is where India stands out, and this is where the visionary leader of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is, and which is, I was just telling you, is being hailed by everyone, including the Indian community. You know, at a time when there is a very volatile situation, especially in the West Asian region, and like you rightly mentioned, that no one is willing to come here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it's his first leg of the 5-nation tour. It's a stopover here in the United Arab Emirates. Both the leaders will talk about the energy sector. Both the leaders will talk about the welfare of the Indian community and how to take the bilateral ties to the next level, which, like I was just mentioning, are already strengthened, especially in the last 10 years. The level of ties which have strengthened is absolutely amazing. Mark, when you talk about the ties between both the, trade ties between both the countries, especially, then it currently stands at over $100 billion US. Imagine in 1970s, from 180 million annually, it now stands at $100 billion US, and both the countries have promised to take that trade to $200 billion, by the year 2032. So
Yes.
that goes on to show the level of cooperation between both the countries, and that too in various sectors, including energy, which is the bedrock of the relationship between both the countries. Apart from that, you have defense ties as well, you have education ties as well, cultural ties as
Yes,
well,
Siddharth.
people-to-people ties. I was just mentioning, when we went to the BAPS, the kind of response that we got is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Not just the people from Indian community, people from all other regions, religions, different faiths, they come here and witness the beauty of the BAPS temple, which was inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2024.
Yeah.
That
Siddharth.
goes on to show that cultural ties, how they are strengthening, and ties in
Yes.
all other sectors as well.
Yes,
Sakal,
yes,
tell me.
yes. You have been reporting on those lines also, that kind of magnifies the sentiment on ground. Siddharth, stay with us. Ambassador Chakravarti, your thought, the fact that, do you think this visit also signals India's proactive engagement in the region, especially like Professor Cholia mentioned, the timings of it. You're talking about reliable supplies, India's trade resilience, and the geopolitical balancing that India has been trying to do, because there's so much water has passed under the bridge in the last 1 year or more.
Certainly, India has taken a very balanced approach. As you know, India has good relations with all these countries in the Gulf, Iran too. In fact, the Iranian foreign minister is probably in Delhi for the BRICS foreign ministers meeting, and we are talking to him as well. And then, of course, we have good relations with Israel. So I think we have balanced all these relationships. And obviously, in a situation of war, there is an element of uncertainty, and the balance is disturbed. But we are sticking to our policy goal of keeping this balance intact. And that is why, and of course, UAE is the most important country as far as we are concerned in the GCC, in the Gulf area. And we have already laid out why it is, the various things that bind us so closely. And our economic goals cannot be served, as I said, without access to energy. So I think UAE is a major pillar of that energy security for us, apart from the fact that so many million Indians there. Now, the geopolitical balancing will continue, I think. We are not going to take sides. We are married, or sort of strictly, married to strategic autonomy. I don't know whether married is the right word, but we are sticking to it. And there is no reason to abandon it. It has served our purpose, national interest. We are a growing economy, and we are on the road to as a rising power. And with our size and population, India is obviously also a very, very attractive market for most countries.
Yes, Ambassador. Right. Let me turn to Dr. Cholia. You were mentioning about the timing of this visit. Significantly also, I mean, there are rifts between Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and our NSA has been, in conversations with the NSA of Saudi Arabia. Well, I mean, the entire Gulf region we look at as, as a collective whole in a sense, and this diplomatic geopolitical balancing, as we are talking about, is crucial. India as a dependable partner for all these nations, how significant is the visit in that context?
Yeah, Mark, you're right. I mean, the war has actually shown the contradictions among the Gulf powers. So, UAE has suffered disproportionately from most of the Iranian, strikes. Saudi Arabia less so. And Saudi Arabia, as Ambassador Chakravarti was mentioning, has also, it informally heads the OPEC grouping.
Right.
So UAE has moved away from Saudi Arabia. There's no doubt. There are also regional, one-upmanship rivalry between these two traditional powers, because even in Yemen, in Libya, and elsewhere in Sudan and so on, UAE and Saudi have not often backed the same horses. So I think UAE wants to come out of the shadow of Saudi Arabia, and probably they expect. And also another factor is Saudi Arabia has entered into a so-called mutual defense alliance or pact with Pakistan.
So is there a shifting, geopolitical or security landscape taking
place?
So
security and defense, Mark, we are not talking about it much because the focus is on energy this time, Prime Minister's visit. But we have signed something called a letter of intent earlier this year for deepening collaboration in defense production, joint exercises, training, and maritime security. So UAE expects probably more, joint maneuvers and such things with the Indian Navy, because see, we are able to, if Fujairah and Khor Fakkan, the two ports of UAE which are outside the Strait of Hormuz, they have also been attacked, but they are outside the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, they cannot be blockaded by Iran, in which case we will be able to probably give them escorts and such things to bring them out and for the tankers to move easily. Yes. And if we build an undersea pipeline across the Gulf of Oman, which includes these two ports of UAE, I think we can create a kind of like a safer alternative to Strait of Hormuz. So there are many things that are the reconfiguration of the energy mix and our partners is also likely to happen. And so Prime Minister's visit is going to lay the foundation for that kind of a shift. And last thing I'll say is, Gulf countries historically always have had animosities. And like Ambassador Chakravarti is saying, we have tried to thread the needle. We don't necessarily side with one. Just because Saudi Arabia has done a defense pact with Pakistan doesn't mean that we are going to do exactly the same with UAE. Because we also have a huge diaspora in Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia also is a strategic partner of India. Not as important as UAE. There is a hierarchy, no doubt. UAE is a number one partner. But we will not want to antagonize Saudi also, right? And because we will not want them to push them further in the direction of Pakistan. In fact, there is a contradiction between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia that's emerged, because Saudi demanded that Pakistan come to their support against Iran during the war. And Pakistan was caught in a no man's land because they couldn't do that.
So what are the deliverables likely going to focus on? Like review of the robust already existing partnerships, but some sort of renewed push as far as defense and technology vertical is concerned? Because we're talking a lot about the energy. Do you think it's going to be just energy centric, or there's going to be more to it?
I think there's going to be more. Energy definitely right now, with the pressure on the fuel prices and all those things, we do need an assured supply line, and definitely the UAE will go all out for us, because they also need that kind of a big demand here. Somebody will buy their products for long term. So there will be strategic agreements on gas, LNG, and on oil for sure, and also to maybe enhance our petroleum reserve. But on the defense side, definitely more cooperation. UAE has a strong air force. It's a small country, but doesn't have a very powerful navy. And this is where I think Indian Navy, we have power projection up to the western end of the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, up to the mouth of the Hormuz and to the Bab al-Mandab. And these are the places where UAE is eyeing for security. So if we are able to help secure these regions through our maritime power projection, I think it will greatly enhance the strategic trust. And it's also a way for India to play a bigger role in the security architecture, because the Gulf is in total shambles after this war, and they don't know who to go to. And of course, I'm not saying we'll replace the US, but I think we've got the capacity to help these countries which are in dire need right now.
The point on Gulf is in shambles after the war, and in that sense, before I go to the next story, Ambassador Chakravarti, would you like to quickly come in here? We have spoken about why this is significant, but why this makes this is more significant from the UAE's perspective, in the sense, what is it that they have to expect from this particular visit and their reliability on India in certain spheres?
Well, as the war in the Gulf, the war with Iran has severely, I think, destroyed the concept that the US could provide security to all these countries. I can't remember the exact number, but the US has many, many bases there. But all of the bases have not been able to prevent attacks from Iran. So I think they are now deeply worried as to their alliance with the US. As to this, the question is, you make an alliance, then you expect something in return. What is the outcome? Now, the outcome has been very negative. I mean, they have been, many of these bases have also been hit and destroyed. But the US is now keeping it under wraps because they don't want the world to know. But the fact is the Iranians have already displayed various pictures, and nowadays you can't keep things hidden because there are satellites and everything that can watch these things. So I think it's all over social media, the kind of damage that has been done. So the GCC countries, and they will be thinking very hard as to whether they should remain under the US security umbrella. This is a major geopolitical sort of question that their strategic experts will have to grapple with. So where do they go? So do they spread out their security requirements for different countries? And that is where India also comes in, because India has a very powerful navy which operates as Sriram said, to Bab el-Mandeb and the mouth of the Hormuz. And if the fuel supplies come through Fujairah, then the Indian Navy will be able to protect those. But of course, the question is attacks from the air and drones, etc., if the war continues, can happen. Now, whether India will be able to provide some protective, defensive structures there, I'm not going into names here, but I think that is also could be a factor. And I do believe that the defense sector will acquire a larger profile between the two countries.
Okay. We would like to take that discussion forward on that point. But before that, I think we have some more stories to track. Mark?
Right, let's take a look at another story here. The M.A. Yusuf Ali, he's the chairman of Lulu Group International, and he said that the visit of the Prime Minister to the United Arab Emirates is expected to further strengthen economic and trade relations between the two countries. And he also said that the agreements signed over the past decade, they have made business and investment easier. He's expressed confidence that this visit is going to give a fresh boost to bilateral trade, investment and also strategic cooperation.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be coming to the United Arab Emirates on 15th of May 2026. The ties between both the nations have tremendously enhanced, especially when we talk about the last decade. And the tide spans across various sectors, including healthcare, including energy, and all other sectors. The economic partnership between both the countries have also got a huge impetus. To talk more on this, I have with me the Managing Director and Chairman of Lulu Group International, Mr. M.A. Yusuf. When we talk about the economic partnership between India and the United Arab Emirates, how do you see that?
See, the relation between India and UAE are great, strong, and also bilateral relation plus the personal relation between His Highness the President of UAE, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji is very strong. That means very strong relation, bilateral, economic and commercial. And also UAE is investing India and invested India more than $45 billion. Again, UAE is investing in India because the relation between India and UAE and the personal relation, both are very strong. That is why this relation is growing, and our Honorable Prime Minister has got a very good personal relations with the leaders of Arab and Islamic countries, especially GCC countries. When the crisis came here, our Honorable Prime Minister called personally all the GCC leaders and majesties, presidents, highnesses, personally, and supported the GCC country. There is a great initiative from our Honorable Prime Minister.
So very quickly, the economic partnership between both the countries, got a huge elevation, especially in 2022, when both the countries signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. How do you see the business opportunities here?
The SIPA came on the line. Now UAE is using a hub for different parts of the world. UAE is hub for Middle East, GCC, and Africa. A lot of products from India is coming and transshipping and reshipping to different parts of the world. That is also a very great initiative and a great moment that all our exports are increasing to UAE. And bilateral and economic, that's why I mentioned.
That was the chairman of the Lulu Group International, who said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the United Arab Emirates will certainly give an impetus to the already strengthened ties between both the countries. And also, when it comes to business opportunities, then there are various business opportunities here, and they will keep growing in future as well. With camera person Saurabh Kumar, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India in Abu Dhabi.
Well, Siddharth Bhardwaj is still with us. Siddharth, we watched with interest your interview with the Lulu chairman. Now, let's put into focus this economic relationship and, the movement away from fossil fuels, because trade is so important. And we are looking at, retailers doing really well, logistics, digital trade, all these aspects which, not much focus is on. Could you fill us in with some of the details as to what is expected? Because after all, the UAE is trying to reduce its dependence on oil and to about 30%, I think, by 2030, and then to about much lower because they want to be net zero by 2050. So that is the whole aim, and the knowledge economy, digital trade, all these things like retail, these are the ways the economy is going to build up.
Well, definitely, Mark. As you heard in the interview as well, when the chairman of the Lulu International Group was telling that as far as the business opportunities between both the countries are concerned, and there are lots and lots of business opportunities, and SIPA, which is SIPA, when it was signed in the year 2022, it was definitely a game changer for both the countries. When you talk about the trade ties between both the countries and economic ties, certainly because I was like I was earlier mentioning as well, Mark, that when it happens, there is a reduced tax on many items, and there's a greater market access for both the countries, resulting in the development and enhancement of the economies of both the nations. Apart from that, Mark, we've already discussed the trade ties between both the countries. The bilateral trade currently stands at $100 billion. As far as the opportunities are concerned, there are many opportunities, and we had a word with so many Indians here yesterday, especially when we were having the interview. And they were absolutely, amazed by the fact that, in the past decade, especially the kind of opportunities that...
Right, Siddharth, we are going to play out some visuals of the Prime Minister's arrival. Currently, yes, here are the visuals.
On your screens, for the viewers of TT India, exclusive visuals of Prime Minister Modi's arrival at the UAE some minutes earlier. You can see Prime Minister Modi being accorded ceremonial reception and, of course, being accompanied by UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The visit is not a full state visit, but highly significant, a short but high impact visit made by, rather a stopover by Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi to UAE.
Indeed, and this visit, all these events taking place actually at the airport, which is a secluded landing place for the presidential planes, and ready for events such as these, which are short visits.
Yes.
So much of the Prime Minister's interaction will be at the airport itself.
Yes. Besides the energy security and other aspects in terms of the significance of the visit, I would like Professor Sriram to come in here. You know, the personal relationship between the two leaders, President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and our Prime Minister Modi, the fact that President Nahyan has made numerous visits to India under the Prime Ministership of Modi, they share a very special bond, and I think that's also going to be one of the talking points.
Absolutely.
And the reciprocation by President Nahyan.
Yeah. No, I think Mohammed bin Zayed actually really turned around the UAE-India relationship. It used to be somewhat neutral or even hostile at one time, like going back 20-25 years ago. But now, you know, MBZ, as he's called, has really seen value, and I think a large part of it comes from the trust he has built up with Prime Minister Modi. There's no doubt that he's probably one of the few world leaders whom Prime Minister Modi actually calls my brother.
Okay.
And I think over the years, 5 times Mohammed bin Zayed has come to India.
5 times.
And this is the 8th time Prime Minister is going there. So clearly, you know, these leader-to-leader exchanges do convey a message across the board to the bureaucracies on both sides, to the business communities, to the diaspora, everybody, that, you know, this is really a very, very strategic partnership indeed.
Okay.
And I think Mohammed bin Zayed actually sees in India a huge market, a great opportunity for their sovereign wealth funds. Remember, the UAE has invested close to $26 billion in India so far, and we expect hundreds of billions more. I repeat, hundreds of billions more.
Okay.
You know, in the Indian economy in the years to come. And I think over time, Mohammed bin Zayed has taken UAE foreign policy in a very pragmatic direction. They want to align with countries that are big market opportunities, that have moderate values.
Yes. Let's have Ambassador Chakravarti's thoughts on this. A very important point that you raised, Professor Cholia. Interests of UAE, especially Ambassador Chakravarti, coming to you under the presidentship of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Why is this very, very important for UAE?
Well, I think UAE is looking for a future role, and it has the resources for it, and it wants to also run away, or shall we say, put some distance between its dependence on fossil fuels,
okay,
and sort of diversify. So, and India becomes a very important partner in that policy sort of goal. So, I think that is what is happening. And the UAE has taken steps like walking out of the OPEC, and these are clear indicators that the UAE is willing to take some very important and even difficult steps to reach its goal that I have just described. So that is why the UAE is becoming. Moreover, don't forget that the UAE for India is it's a 100+ billion market. Not all the goods are consumed there. Many of the goods are sent across to all other with different countries in Africa and other countries. Even Iran, I believe, goods travel from there. It's like Singapore, which is a hub, and goods go from there to all over the place in Asia, for example, to smaller countries. So I think that is an important thing, and international trade for us is very, very important. It gives a fillip to our manufacturing industries, which is sorely needed because of the our manufacturing sector has to expand. It is not as big as it should be.
Right.
So these are some of the factors that are dictating, or shall we say, influencing decisions of both UAE and India. Plus, UAE's investments in India are growing, and they are bound to grow, because only a large economy which is growing like India's can absorb those investments. And we have the CEPA, so there is investment protection agreements. So I think the scene, the groundwork is there. Now it's a question of going further forward and raising the bar, as we say.
We'll have to see how further forward we are going to go, because we're really waiting for those MOUs and bilaterals,
Sure.
and that's kind of...
I think Siddharth is standing in the hot sun for a long period of time. You can see that. Well, Siddharth, let's put this into context. I mean, after all, as Dr. Cholia was saying, the UAE is looking to invest a lot of money in India, billions of dollars. And we talked about the CEPA goals, which are about, $200 billion of bilateral trade. Massive amounts of money when we think about it. Also, this comes at a time when the rupee is, is sort of eroding some of the value of the Indian economy, because the value in terms of the dollar. But investors, if they keep coming into India, that's going to shore up the rupee as well over a period of time. To what extent, is all this really part of the economic focus?
Very much, Mark. When you talk about India's economy, it will certainly soon become the third largest economy in the world. And as you very well know, that India is the largest growing major economy. When you talk about the India-UAE economic ties, so we all very well know this, Mark, that UAE is India's third largest trading partner and 7th largest investor. So, UAE investing in India is something which is really has come up, especially in the past decade. When you talk about UAE investments, it spans across to infrastructure, to cement, to critical minerals as well, and there are some other sectors wherein the UAE is investing in India. So there is a greater vision when it comes to UAE's investments in India. And as far as the trade goes between both the countries, like we've already discussed it quite a number of times, that it's absolutely growing and phenomenally well. With leaders promising the trade just doubling it by 2032, it seems like the way the trade is happening between both the countries, the goal could be achieved even before 2032. A landmark agreement, like I earlier mentioned as well, was in 2022 when both the countries signed CEPA. And also, apart from that, bilateral investment treaty was also signed in the year 2024. In 2023, the local currency settlement system. Now here in the United Arab Emirates, RuPay and UPI card, they work as smooth as they work in India. That goes on to show that the cross-border smoother transactions are happening, and in community and people who are coming here for tourism purpose as well, they don't have to carry cash as much as they had to carry it earlier. They can just pay by their phones, and there are UPI, there are scanners available in the malls and in the shops as well, so you can just scan and pay.
Did you try it, Siddharth? Did you try that?
The smoother transaction
did you use the UPI?
Is happening. Yeah, I did, definitely I did. I purchased a lot of things, Mark.
Okay.
And, especially things like perfumes.
Okay, we don't want to know that.
Things, which are very, very special here, very famous here.
We will share the list later,
UAE.
Siddharth. Yes, absolutely. Siddharth, just stay with us. Well, on
Please,
that lighter note.
I'm waiting.
Yes, on that lighter note, in fact, since you talked about the UPI, a bit more context, Sriram, the trade thing, and also are we also looking at some sort of more robust push to the already existing mechanisms like IMAC and revival of I2U2?
Oh yes. No, I think the financial integration is a critical thing. The merchandise trade, of course, like we are saying, a small country like UAE has become our third largest trading partner. It's just behind US and China. I mean, just look at the scale of the UAE and the potential. So definitely financial integration will enable greater trade flows and also greater investment flows. So I think our diaspora there not only is a living bridge, but also they know the art of doing business in India, and they've got the local knowledge, and they are able to create these financial networks which are generating so much wealth. And I think UAE definitely, Prime Minister's emphasis with UAE has always been on this aspect. And under Mohammed bin Zayed, they see that, they see this as the way for the UAE to become a bigger player in world affairs. With the Indian support and Indian friendship, they can also rise up. On the question of I2U2 and IMEC, definitely, these connectivity projects, UAE and India are core members of both of these ideas. Unfortunately, because of the wars since 2023, the Gaza war and now the Iran war, some of these pathways have been blocked due to the fighting and due to the mistrust among different players. But I think UAE and India, we can definitely revive the I2U2 because I2U2 is India, United States, UAE and Israel. And UAE and Israel have grown much closer lately, especially during the Iran war. It said that Israel actually even deployed its air defense systems to protect UAE. Right. So I think we can revive these because that's how our regional influence
we are getting
will
some
spread.
Visuals of the Prime Minister's plane arriving in the UAE in Abu Dhabi, and in fact they were escorted by UAE F-16 fighter jets, as these are visuals taken from a phone of our correspondent inside. So we are getting it in an unusual shape right now.
On your screens, UAE's F-16 jets escorting
Prime
Minister Modi's plane as the plane entered the UAE's airspace. And as we stay with these exclusive visuals, Ambassador Chakrabarti, would you like to come in here, because this visit happens when the West Asian war is at its peak, and this also kind of underscores the kind of security apparatus that the UAE has put in place, the security aspect of Prime Minister Modi's visit at this juncture to UAE and the airspace and in general. Ambassador Chakrabarti.
Well, two things. I think this is both ceremonial and, as you said, security oriented, in the sense that in that airspace, since there has been, drones flying, missiles flying, so there is an element of security also
the
there.
The criticality of the security aspect at the timings of the visit that we were discussing earlier.
Exactly, yeah. Because it is a war zone. I mean, technically it remains a war zone because although there is a ceasefire still on, and negotiations are going on. So I think that is it's the least thing that the UAE would do. It is done even during normal times, but that becomes more ceremonial, escorting the VVI plane to its destination and just peeling off before the plane goes into land. So I think this is normal in international travel for heads of states and heads of governments. Right. And I can personally say that since I have traveled in some of these visits, I have seen this happen quite a lot.
Well, that's very nice to see, and it adds a certain sense of prestige to the visit as well. We'll turn to Dr. Cholia. Now, you were talking about I2U2 and that revival, but also mentioned IMEC. Now, the point is that there were lots of aspects in this. There was rail connectivity, port connectivity, energy corridors, all these things. Some of them can be worked, right, despite the war. And there's also digital corridors. To what extent can, we focus on things that are possible at this kind of time?
Let's go live once again to UAE, and we are standing by for the opening remarks of Honorable Prime Minister of India.
My dear brother, इस आत्मीय स्वागत के लिए मैं आपका हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। और जैसा आपने कहा, मैं अपने दूसरे घर आया हूँ। ये शब्द, ये भाव मेरे जीवन की बहुत बड़ी पूंजी है। आज भी जिस प्रकार से आपकी वायुसेना के जहाजों ने एस्कॉर्ट किया, ये भारत के लोगों का सम्मान है। आपने पिछले दिनों प्राकृतिक आपदा के कारण कुछ इलाकों में जो परेशानियां आई, उन पीड़ित परिवारों के लिए संवेदना व्यक्त की, इसके लिए भी मैं आपका बहुत बहुत आभारी हूं। ब्रदर, पिछले कुछ समय से आपसे फोन पर तो बात होती रहती थी, परंतु मैं स्वयं आपसे मिलने के लिए बहुत ही बेताब था, आतुर था। पता नहीं क्यों, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लग रहा था कि मुझे जितना हो सके उतना जल्दी आपके पास आना चाहिए, आपको मिलना चाहिए। आज आपसे मिलकर के मुझे सचमुच में बहुत खुशी हुई है। ब्रदर, जैसा मैंने आपको पहले भी कहा है, यूएई पर हुए हमलों की हम कठोर निंदा करते हैं। यूएई को जिस तरह निशाना बनाया गया है, ये किसी भी रूप में स्वीकार्य नहीं है। ब्रदर, इन कठिन परिस्थितियों में आपने जिस संयम, करेज और विजन का परिचय दिखाया है, यह बहुत ही सराहनीय है। राष्ट्रीय एकता, सुरक्षा और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता को बनाए रखने में आपके नेतृत्व में उठाए गए कदमों का हम अभिनंदन करते हैं। कठिन समय यूएई में रहने वाले भारतीय समुदाय की चिंता करने और उनकी देखभाल की, जिस प्रकार से आपने उनको अपने परिवार के सदस्य रूप में संभाला है, मैं यूएई सरकार का, आपका, रॉयल फैमिली का हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। ब्रदर, पश्चिम एशिया क्षेत्र में युद्ध की परिस्थिति का प्रभाव आज पूरे विश्व पर दिखाई दे रहा है। भारत ने हमेशा समस्याओं के समाधान के लिए डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी को प्राथमिकता दी है। हॉर्मुज़ को फ्री, ओपन और सेफ बनाए रखना, ये हमारी सबसे बड़ी प्राथमिकता है। इस विषय में अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानूनों का पालन आवश्यक है। ब्रदर, भारत हर परिस्थिति में यूएई के साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर खड़ा है और आगे भी खड़ा रहेगा। जल्द से जल्द शांति और स्थिरता की बहाली के लिए भारत हर संभव सहयोग देने के लिए तैयार है। ब्रदर, हमारी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप को निरंतर नई ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंचाने के लिए मैं आपका हृदय से बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करता हूं। जनवरी में आपकी भारत यात्रा के दौरान हमने आपसी सहयोग को क्वालिटेटिवली अपग्रेड करने पर सहमति जताई। इतने कम समय में भी हमने सभी विषयों में उल्लेखनीय प्रगति की। दोनों टीमों के बीच भी करीबी संपर्क रहा। आज जिस तरह की परिस्थिति है, इसमें भारत और यूएई की स्ट्रेटेजिक साझेदारी, इसका महत्व कई गुना बढ़ गया। हम आने वाले समय में हर क्षेत्र में साथ मिलकर के आगे बढ़ते रहेंगे। एक बार फिर आपके आत्मीयता भरे स्वागत और गहरी मित्रता के लिए मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं।
Well, those were opening remarks by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Honorable Prime Minister once again referring to President Nayan as brother in between those very powerful words by Prime Minister Modi. In fact, he started by condemning the recent attacks on UAE, calling them absolutely unacceptable. Prime Minister talked about the kind of resilience and the patience that has been shown by the top leadership of UAE during their challenging and difficult times, quote unquote, and also he spoke about how dialogue and diplomacy once again is the the solution in the context of the current warring times. And Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister talked about that how India stands firmly and respects the international rule of law. This was also in a particular context. He also made it, the powerful point that Prime Minister Modi made was how India stands with UAE. Right. Brother, we stand with you. And he spoke about the comprehensive strategic partnership between India and UAE, which further stands consolidated. We're also, in the course of our discussion on the special broadcast, we're going to talk about the takeaways of those opening remarks made by Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, at UAE, and discuss more about the messaging here, because we're also looking at some MOUs there, but overall very important, in fact. And let me also take this opportunity to welcome on this special broadcast all the way from London, Burzeen Wagmar. They're joining us. Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. So let me start with you, Burzeen. What do you make of this powerful and short but high impact opening remarks by Honourable Prime Minister?
Good morning from London. First things first, it is entirely welcome that the Indian Prime Minister stated to render the translation from Hindi to English for your international viewers unacceptable as to what the UAE has endured in the last 2 months, the attacks on the UAE. That is a clear-cut message from New Delhi, and that needs to be iterated, and it is entirely welcome and will be welcomed in Abu Dhabi and across.
We are getting some more visuals from UAE. Signing of MOUs there.
We'll get the details of these MOUs that were signed. We can see that Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has signed them on behalf of India, and also India's ambassador, Dr. Deepak Mittal.
Yes. And yes, on your screens, Prime Minister Modi of India and President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. As we stay with these visuals, Sriram, would you like to come in? Because obviously the official confirmation of what kind of MOUs are being exchanged is just a matter of time. But anything would you like to add to it?
I think I was struck by the reference to peace and stability, Sakal, in the region, and how India will do everything to support the restoration of peace and stability. I think it indicates a closer, strategic and defense cooperation that's on the anvil with the UAE. I think
defense is very much there.
It's very much there. It's very much there, and obviously, Prime Minister knows the sensitivities in the region, and he knows all the leaders in the region. We are also engaging with the Iranians for the safe passage of tankers of carrying oil and gas. So I think India has got a unique position in this war, where Israel, UAE, and Saudi and Gulf countries, and also Iran, we've got all of them on our list of strategic partners. There's few countries like that. I mean, Pakistan claimed it was going to do mediation in the Iran war, but Israel is unwilling to accept Pakistan's role at all, and Israel looks at it with a lot of contempt. But we've got bridges with all of them. And UAE, Israel, India, the I2U2, I think, as I mentioned, is a crucial pathway to go forward. And I think Prime Minister's remarks, it also struck me that, he was saying that the strategic partnership has a higher value at these times. In other words, when the UAE is in crisis, when Dubai has been hit, when its status as a world financial center has been hit, and when people are leaving the UAE because of the expatriates are leaving because of the fear for security and long-term prosperity of the country, India is actually placing a bigger bet on them. So, in other words, this is what you do in strategic partnerships, right? And that's why he was mentioning that at this current juncture, the strategic partnership has higher value. So, I think India is willing to be more of a net security provider, number one. And like I said, a dependable energy buyer, and also a partner for co-development of strategic reserves. All these will be reflected in the agreements. And I think going forward, I think we'll see more coordination among the I2U2 partners. I mean, especially Israel, India and the UAE, because that is going to be very, very crucial to protect UAE assets going in the future. They have been really rattled by the war. And as we discussed, I think the US umbrella, of course, is there. They still have US bases, but I think they're looking to move to other partners which can protect not just the physical territory of the UAE, but the supply chains and the routes the sea lines
now
of communication.
we're getting some more inputs on what we are seeing on your screens, the exchange of these MOUs. We're looking at the agreement on framework for the strategic defense partnership. That's very important. Agreement on framework for the strategic partnership between India and UAE. Also an MOU on strategic petroleum reserves. We've been talking about the energy security aspect. So here you have petroleum reserves strategic partnership. Third one is on the agreement on supplies of liquefied petroleum gas. Again, energy there being a very, very critical element, LPG. MOU on setting up of ship repair cluster at Wadinar. And also, since we've been talking about the trade and burgeoning trade relations between two countries, investment worth $5 billion announced in Indian infrastructure and RBL Bank and Samman Capital. So this is basically where we stand now as far as India-UAE is concerned, and the significance of this particular visit, particularly in the sector of trade, agreement on the supplies of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, and that's exactly why this visit was very significant, or is significant. The MOU on the strategic petroleum reserves and agreement on also framework for the strategic defense partnership. Ambassador Chakrabarti, a quick one on that, and we can take quick remarks from all our panelists. Ambassador Chakrabarti, sir, your thoughts. So we're looking at defense, energy vis-a-vis petroleum reserves and LPG, ship repair cluster, and huge investment worth $5 billion as we stay with these visuals. So,
yes, these are the subjects that are on the agenda. And as I said earlier, that defense will be a growing sector because of the security requirements. And since they are no longer dependent, or they don't want to depend on the US for all their security requirements. So defense is the energy we have talked about. Naturally, we may have done an MOU to provide more LPG and more oil, etc. And the other part is that investments, which we have talked about. UAE is a very large investor in India, and they have now said they would they would invest another $5 billion. And the last and the most, and quite an important point, is the strategic reserves, which the UAE, by the way, it's a UAE company which manages those strategic reserves in India. And because of the crisis that we have had in the supply chains of energy, I think the strategic reserves have become far more important and more crucial. India is therefore trying to ramp up its strategic reserves. It's not an easy job, nor can it be done overnight. You have to build, reserve space, etc. So I think that is where maybe some of the investment from UAE might go into building those strategic reserves, for which the UAE will also provide the fuel or the oil to store there. I think this is a hedging against future problems in energy supplies, and this is what I think basically sums up this visit, the outcomes of this visit.
So energy,
yes.
yeah.
Mr. Bagma, to what extent, or what would you see as one of the key aspects of these agreements, which stands out for you? I mean, there is the strategic defense partnership, then there's strategic petroleum reserves, there's the supply of liquefied petroleum gas, ship repair, and an investment of $5 billion. What stands out?
For me, the LNG bit would stand out, Mark, because
Right.
remember, storing LNG in itself is very expensive for all countries, universally speaking, and there is just in-time purchases that are done by all countries. So to bank on that as the UAE for a dependable partner is extremely important. But also you must remember the flurry of MOUs that we see being signed today come on the heels of the January visit by the UAE delegation to New Delhi too. And this has accelerated after the Iran war. And that is particularly important because now there's diversified cooperation also in AI, quantum computing, supercomputing, and infrastructural projects, including, as you mentioned, about strategic reserves as such. But there is also the defense and security aspects that must be underscored. That will also be ramped up because the UAE perceives India as a dependable partner, and it reposes confidence in India, practically second just to the US now. as Dr. Gargash pointed out after the end of the war, the most senior Emirati diplomat. And finally, you must remember that India has amicable relations with all members of the IMEC panel, that is UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, Greece, and the EU. And of course, the Prime Minister's successful visits were also made to Jordan and Saudi Arabia in the recent past. That must be factored in. So India has much to gain, and please note, with the energy crunch worldwide that is being faced now, IMEC will take front, right, and center priority because 47.5% fuel consumption savings can be done by avoiding the Suez Canal and exporting and importing goods through the IMEC corridor. That will be on the mind of all planners in New Delhi, Abu Dhabi, and elsewhere.
Right, but IMEC is going to take some time, isn't it, Mr. Wagma, because of the conflicts in the region, the disruptions as a result of it. And I mean, you have to build rail infrastructure, first of all, get ports organized. I mean, the energy corridors you're speaking about will only come after that, isn't it? And then there is also digital trade, which is part of it.
Yes, and insofar as the rail lines are concerned, some of that has been laid, and also diversification, Mark, has taken place at the ports. For example, Fujairah was attacked during the war, but Khor-Fakkan port has been accelerated as a priority port. So yes, Khalifa port would come, which was part of the IMEC corridor and is still on the books. It remains so, that is true, but I would also envisage in the future that Khor-Fakkan would be part of the IMEC. I would propose that because it is not within the Strait of Hormuz ambit, and it is a safer route as you leave Mundra in Gujarat or Navasheva, New Bombay as such, and link up with the rail lines towards Saudi Arabia, and finally all the way up to Marseille. So diversification on the part of the Emiratis has already started with the war in question, and also with the Saudis, as you know, who have started ramping up exports through Yanbu on the Red Sea. So that must be noted that both partners of India and the IMEC have already set in motion plans to avoid future political problems in the region.
Dr. Cholia, you would like to comment on that point and expand on it?
Yeah, you know, connectivity, we have got many pathways as we just heard. And I think the Arabian Sea region, you know, as a whole, we have to strengthen the maritime security. And that's one of the reasons I think I'm very happy to hear that we have moved forward on the defense agreement, because that creates the basis for interoperability. Already we have been doing joint exercises with UAE, armed forces, and I think now it's not, it's not beyond my imagination for India to actually have a permanent presence in that region. You know, most of the powers have been establishing bases.
I will just, yeah, these are fresh visuals again from UAE. They're on your screens, Prime Minister.
Actually, these
Modi.
are visuals
Yes.
of the Prime Minister's arrival a
earlier.
little earlier. We did play out shots for you which were from of the ceremonial reception, which took place after that. These are some visuals that we have now gotten a little earlier of his arrival. We showed you the plane arriving, and then the Prime Minister getting off the plane, which we have received right now.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, so we are talking about defense cooperation. I think this framework has going to enable us to have greater presence and movement in the Gulf region, and to secure our own commercial, shipping and our own, energy security. I think we need to have a more proactive presence there, and through the UAE we can do that, and even France is involved. Recently we had the France, UAE, India trilateral, and maritime security is one of the main pillars there. So I think, and France has presence in the Indian Ocean territories as well, and UAE has got a very strong strategic partnership with France as well. So, but I must also mention for our audience, it's not purely bilateral, because when we talk of third countries, UAE is also backing the India-Sri Lanka proposed oil pipeline. UAE financing is going to be critical. So in this entire region, we can actually create these, interdependencies that are safer.
So should we just break away and talk a little bit about the two leaders and their chemistry or their relationship or rapport, as we are seeing on the visuals? Dr. Cholia.
Well, you heard Prime Minister saying, "Ye mera dusra ghar hai." It's my second home, home away from home, and really UAE has become that, for us. And he also, of course, repeatedly referred to Mohammed bin Zayed as his brother, which he's always done. And I think what has happened is, when there is deep convergence of interests, you can see this bromance or personal chemistry also working. Personal chemistry doesn't work when there is no underlying convergence of interests. So in the case of UAE and India, we have in a way discovered each other in the Modi era, because before that it was there was a partnership, but it was nothing close to this comprehensive strategic partnership that we have, where I'm saying the whole regions are being impacted by UAE-India friendship. It's not just a bilateral. We are also able to shape the region, the regional security architecture, the regional supply chains, the regional energy layout, and the connectivities. All those are, we are building the blocks for that. So I think it's a big initiative, and Mohammed bin Zayed always, I think, wanted somebody like Narendra Modi in India. They were looking for a partner because everybody knew there was potential. But implementing, Sankalp se Siddhi tak, that's the Prime Minister's famous phrase, we could only do it in the Modi period, because he was pragmatic enough to see that here is a big opportunity that has been not tapped for India's foreign policy. As part of our Look West policy, UAE became our #1 pillar. And I think in the Modi era, we've been able to realize it. And Mohammed bin Zayed is grateful to that, because like we have been discussing, they want other pillars apart from the US for their long-term security and for their prosperity.
So this personal relationship, yes, on your screens, the personal bonhomie, Burzeen, if you could just to come in here, positioning the UAE as the key pivot for India in the Gulf. We were earlier talking about what Singapore's role is seen in Southeast Asia. Similar to that, something, the personal bonhomie actually getting translated in terms of the diplomatic ties reaching next level in the context of current warring times. This is important.
Indeed, and it is with no exaggeration, I say, it is even more intense and enduring than the Singapore relationship, because the UAE will be the keystone of India's GCC relationship, particularly and from particular to the general Sakal, because as Indian talks are underway for an Indo-GCC FTA, which has been on the anvil for quite a while, and when it will fructify, which assuredly it will, the UAE will be a major part of it, which will have seen it become instrumental. Please note, until 2015, when the Indian Prime Minister went, that was the first visit, a prime ministerial visit to New Delhi after a hiatus of 34 years. And now from 2015 to today, we see 8 visits. What does that tell you? And it certainly tells me as a historian about the Indo-Emirati relationship and the priority that New Delhi places on it. New Delhi may traditionally have a hands-off, non-aligned, multilateral strategic autonomy approach with one and all. And diplomacy is always detached and transactional. But there is something to be said about this Indo-Emirati relationship, which is, Sakal, for me, almost in the level of warmth and bonhomie, like Indo-Mauritian ties. One sees it in that context, which has endured over decades for historical reasons of the Indian diaspora there and all that. I put it at the level of Indo-Mauritian ties as such. And it will endure and crystallize in no time to come on a greater pedestal. And much of it must be seen in the context of prior to the February war, on that January visit for a few hours in the evening hours, when MBZ flew in with the entire delegation into New Delhi. Of course, that time there were discussions done and some treaties were signed. But I must iterate that the treaties today build up on that January visit, and it has accelerated, and the war has been a catalyst for this, for both to come closer than ever before.
That hug when Prime Minister just lands, and yes, that's on your screen, and President Al Nahyan personally receiving Prime Minister. I think when they say pictures speak louder than words. Ambassador Chakrabarti, would you like to come in here, sir? The chemistry between the top leaders.
That a personal relationship between two leaders helps in speeding up implementation. That is for sure, because when the whole bureaucracy sees and the whole diplomatic structure, witnesses that this is a very personal relationship, each calling each other the brother. So they realize that that the Prime Minister has invested a lot in this in relationship, and hence the implementation part gets a lot of encouragement. So that is how I see this. Personal relationships alone do not build relationship between nations. There has to be overlapping interests.
Indeed,
And I think
if we talk a little bit about those overlapping interests, Ambassador Chakrabarti, after all, Prime Minister is leading the Viksit Bharat vision for India 2047, and the UAE has its own visions, both 2030 and 2050. So, and we understand about the stability of the leadership as well in the UAE across all the Emirates, being monarchies which are stable. In that context, what would you look at in terms of the convergences in taking this forward? They have supply chains. They want to be a hub for supply chains. They want to be a hub for capital flows. How does India fit in?
But before that, on your screens, let's
visuals.
also tell our viewers what they are seeing on your screens. Very important here to note that that is the F-16 of UAE. The UAE F-16 jets, they actually accompanied Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi's plane a while back as Prime Minister Modi's plane entered the UAE's airspace. So the criticality of the security aspect, the timings of it, in that context, this is also very essential. Mark.
Indeed, very clear visuals that we are getting of this escort of the Prime Minister's plane as it landed into the presidential landing space of the Abu Dhabi airport.
As we stay with these visuals, I think Ambassador Chakrabarti was making a point.
Yes, go ahead,
Sir, please go ahead.
I was asking you about supply chains and capital flows, I think.
We've already sort of, covered quite a lot of ground on when I said overlapping interests. I mean, let me give you a few examples again. India is a large market for energy, and the UAE is a major producer of energy. So that supply and relationship is an overlapping interest. Then, of course, investments. Then, of course, the Indian community. So these are all, very overlapping interests that bind the two countries. And so there is a dependency created through this relationship. And the interdependence becomes important when you talk about taking the relationship to greater heights. And that is where I think the UAE comes in. And we come into the UAE's radar because of those reasons as well. So that is what is meant by overlapping interests.
Indeed. Mr. Wagma, how would you look at, the long-term relationship between the two countries and really the transformation in a sense, because India too is moving towards from an emerging economy into one of the large dependent economies, growth engines of the world. And the UAE, which is already semi-developed in that context, and looks to grow its economy within its capacities, will bring technology, quality, the informed society kind of debate into the quality of life debate, actually, into this growth story.
Thank you very much for mentioning that, Mark. That's a nice phrase, felicitous expression, informed society. Could I also add to that a tolerant, inclusive, pluralist society, which is what the Emiratis have been consistently underscoring in their messaging, not just during the war as a question of solidarity with all its citizens and its guest expatriates, but even prior to the war. And that, in credit to where credit due, must be put forward. That and we see that in the Emirates, where freedom of worship is paramount and extended to all its non-citizens as well. That has been there for a very long time, and it needs to be pointed out as a model inclusive society. You also spoke about diversification, and that would lead me to comment on, I believe, has not been discussed hitherto. That is why the UAE recently left OPEC. And that needs to be put in context with an as you mentioned, an information-driven society and a diverse society, which was not so 60 years as a petrodollar economy. In fact, current Emirati Ambassador Yusuf Al Otaibi, in an FT Financial Times op-ed, put it quite comprehensively that as we depart OPEC now, it reflects structural changes in global energy markets, fundamental shifts in the world economy, and a clear-eyed view of where the UAE now stands and where we propose to go. And that is where India, as I mentioned, comes in with these collaborations in artificial intelligence, quantum, supercomputing, infrastructural projects, digital trade, and the like. So it's important to mention about this going forward aspect, that this is very much a forward-looking society in profound ways and substantially speaking.
If we look at the real estate sector, Dr. Cholia, I mean, we, behind us we see so many grand buildings which, of course, mark the UAE skyline. And we also know that, India also has a strong market for real estate. To what extent do you see, this being an area which can see future collaboration in terms of real estate development?
Well, Mark, our audiences should know, UAE, an Islamic country, a moderate Islamic country, has invested in real estate in Jammu and Kashmir. And we have the confidence to bring the UAE in to build shopping malls and, to modernize the landscape of Kashmir. And UAE is clearly with us on these matters, and it has for a long time been worried about the radicalism coming from Pakistan and how it could potentially threaten even the monarchy there, through Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other kinds of extremist forces. So when you talk of real estate, look at our trust in the UAE that they are coming and building real estate in our most sensitive border areas, and I think we will enhance that further. A lot of their Emaar group, for example, Dubai, they've got even their ports. I'm interested in one of the MOUs that's been signed, which is on ship repair, right? And see, this is where the UAE has got some capabilities. They've got some deep sea ports, and we need to utilize those capabilities.
I think we'll read this out. The Prime Minister has posted on X, and he says, I thank my brother, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the UAE, for the special gesture of receiving me at Abu Dhabi Airport. I look forward to our discussions towards furthering India-UAE ties across key sectors like energy, investment, supply chains, and more.
And those are the areas where these important MOUs have been inked. And the very mention of the gracious gesture, quote unquote, by the UAE president, the way he received and met Prime Minister at Abu Dhabi Airport. I think we just discussed that a while back. And you were telling us about the trade aspect, I think, and the investment.
Yeah, it's translated from Arabic, so Prime Minister had tweeted in Arabic.
Yeah, no, I think it's truly a comprehensive strategic partnership. We use this term only for few countries, and UAE is one of them. And I think the scale and the level, as Prime Minister said, is just going several notches higher now. And I am very interested in the ship repair and the port-to-port collaboration, which will enhance maritime supply chains. I'm interested in the defense partnership. I hope we will be able to have a permanent or semi-permanent presence there. Most of the big powers have got military bases in that region, especially in Djibouti, across the Horn of Africa, a little further south of the Persian Gulf. And I think Indian Navy, if you have a permanent presence with the assistance of UAE, with the support of Oman, another friendly country of India, which is right next to UAE. And Oman has also suffered some attacks during this war, but lesser than the UAE. And Oman plays a very important role as a go-between in the regional rivalries. And with India, we have a very strong partnership with Oman as well, going back, including in defense. So I think if we leverage the UAE-Oman connectivity there, and then look towards the entire Arabian Sea as a whole, I think we can rebuild and make this region safer and more shock-proof. Because right now it's all about how do we, shield ourselves from these geopolitical shocks happening due to regional rivalries. We have got very high stakes. We can't pull out of the region. We can't say we'll stop buying oil from Middle East or West Asia. We'll bring all our expatriates home. We have 10 million or close to 10 million people overall, the largest concentration being in UAE. We can't just, exit the place. When there is a big challenge there, we have to go in and be proactive. And I think we are seeing that with the Prime Minister's visit today, where we are being proactive and really deepening the strategic partnership, sending a signal. Everybody is watching it. Iranians are watching it.
Oh, yes.
Israelis are applauding on the
Yes.
side and saying, well done, because of the I2U2, and Israel is very close to UAE now. And then, the broader region, I think everybody wants, my view is, UAE, India should be like the bellwether.
So when
and
everybody is watching it,
use this as a model for other
Yes.
bilateral relationships with other players in the region, especially with Oman, which is also very, very ripe fruit for us, low-hanging fruit for
Okay.
us.
Burzeen, would you like to take this further when everybody is watching, and what's the larger messaging here? Not only the MOUs that have been inked or exchanged, but also not only the bonhomie or the chemistry, personal chemistry between the two at this juncture. The chemistry goes back, the relationship goes back. At this juncture, how UAE is seen as a player that can project and promote India's long-term interest in Gulf region, and vice versa, because Sri Ram spoke about Oman, the kind of relationship and alignment we have with Oman now, and of course UAE over a period of time, especially under this particular leadership at the UAE. What is that one message that India and UAE is trying to send across?
Of confidence and enduring long-term ties. And Sriram, I must add a rejoinder here. Thank you, Sakal, for having me on this intervention. Until a few years ago, it's not just UAE Emirati investments in Jammu and Kashmir, as you pointed out. Srinagar had a direct flight to Dubai with Air India Express and Go Air, which operated even during the pandemic with those bubble flights.
Yes.
The flights were subsequently stopped. Well, Go Air folded up, as we know, but then Pakistan threw a kerfuffle about using its airspace, but for a while the flights did go directly Srinagar-Dubai, and Srinagar has never been an international gateway for flights given the security situation over the decades. But when Srinagar went international for a brief respite in time, the first destination chosen was Dubai, and I should very much like to see that back on the radar again, Sakal. So it just goes to show that the civil aviation authorities and India at the highest level could clear flights, international flights, and not just, again, Sakal, Hajj flights, which seasonally do take place between Srinagar and Jeddah, which is another matter altogether, and that has been occurring over the years. But these were commercial, regular flights that Air India Express and Go Air did, and it went from Srinagar to Dubai. There has been no other international flights operating out of Jammu and Kashmir but to the UAE. So that tells you the level of confidence. So I'm glad Sriram brought up the real estate investment, because that reminded me to alert your viewers to this historical aspect.
Also, Mr. Wagma, Dr. Cholia did talk about, the large Indian community. We can't just bring them all back. The point is that we need to stay invested. We have stakes. And at that point, I mean, we look at the Indian diaspora across the world, in fact. What are they looking for, actually, in terms of a better quality of life, higher incomes, and what do they want to give back to the country? After all, the government of India is invested in the long term as well in terms of the Indian diaspora and helping us in our growth story.
66% of Indian NRIs, globally speaking, are ensconced in the GCC sector and primarily UAE, but the GCC generally speaking, Mark. So that tells you how remittances matter so much to India. And there was a telling experience of that with the Iraqi invasion in 1990, when so many had come back overnight when things got upended, and India's balance of payments went into a tizzy, as you know, which led to that IMF bailout in June 91 under Dr. Singh's government. That was triggered because of the oil crisis and the Kuwait crisis. And I believe Indians over the last 30 to 40 years have learned and picked up from that. That was one formidable learning curve for India as to its dependence and remittances that come in from the Gulf. primarily so back in the day. I wouldn't say they've lessened now, but it's expanded towards other parts of the globe with North America too. But the GCC countries remain a hardcore remittance region for India and for so many homes that depend for their livelihoods, you can imagine. And not just traditionally speaking, the Kerala region, which was affected back in 1991. And in a larger sense, we must also talk about the UAE, as I mentioned about how it has been an inclusive society, in that so many other livelihoods across Asia depend on the UAE, not just India, of course, neighboring Pakistan and other SAARC countries, but also Southeast Asia. So for all of them to see a security and enduring relationship with the UAE is important, but much more so for India than most of these other countries, because again, it comes back to the fact that the UAE reposes confidence in New Delhi, as it does, unlike other regional players as such.
Ambassador Chakravarti, if I could come to you, what sort of signal then does all this send to global investors? Because at the end of the day, I mean, India is a country that was seen, or continues to be seen as the bright spot in the global economy, growing fast, an engine of growth for the global economy. But investments are necessary for that to take place, and global connections or connectivity in terms of bringing that the potential of that to its ultimate fruition. What would you say is the message that goes out to global investors?
It's a message, signaling actually. When the UAE decides to invest in India, it signals to other investors all over the world who are all watching India and India's market that yes, I know this country with its sovereign wealth funds is prepared to put in so much money into India. Obviously, they have done their homework and they feel that this is a good investment. So that actually boosts India's investment potential. And I think the rating agencies and others who tend to, but these are all Western, so they have a bias always that they, that India is rated this much and somebody else is rated. So I think they also have to look at it because their ratings sometimes, are not very, in the sense, that it is the last word, so to speak. There are countries who are willing, like UAE, to invest in India, and that of course creates the investment climate that other countries who have sovereign wealth funds, who have been investing in India and may therefore decide to raise their investments into the Indian economy, which is growing. It is one of the fastest growing economies. So naturally this attracts capital, and capital flows sometimes, it goes up and down because you have FII and FDI, but this is more like FDI, not FII, which is more ethereal in the sense that you can withdraw the money anytime and put it in the stock market. So I think this is a far more long-term kind of an investment in when we say FDI, because it goes into building physical infrastructure and assets in the country.
Indeed.
So Sriram, also let's focus a bit more on the big takeaways as far as Prime Minister's brief but very impactful opening remarks were concerned. He started by condemning the recent attacks on UAE. Then he spoke about how India stands firmly with UAE during these, and I quote, difficult and challenging times, appreciating UAE's top leadership's resilience and patience. But that specific reiteration of how India stands firmly with the UAE and respect for international law.
Yeah,
I think there was a message there.
Yeah. No, I think that point about India and UAE both wanting an open and free and unhindered Strait of Hormuz, I mean, that was, categorical point from Prime Minister. And I think that's what the whole world wants. I mean, if there is a double blockade, right now we have like both the Iranians and the Americans have blockaded it on different sides. How is commercial, shipping going to even survive? I mean, we have like hundreds of vehicles that are stranded there. We have been managing through very deft diplomacy of the Modi government. We've been managing to get our tankers and our ships out of the Hormuz through great efforts and through networking with different players on the scene. But the point is, international law, Prime Minister said respect for international law, including UNCLOS, which is the law of the sea. A natural formation like a strait is not the sovereign territory of anybody. Nobody can block it or impose a toll on it. And, or nobody can say, I won't let other vehicles pass. This is the high seas. These are the international waters. So it should be respected. And I think that's a very critical point, because right now the whole world is on tenterhooks with regard to how can we get these choke points opened. And the choke points cannot be, held hostage like this. So what is happening for several weeks, the whole world, especially Asian consumers, big Asian, India, China, Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asian countries, most of them are dependent on the Strait of Hormuz being open, Of course, we are now looking for alternatives and we are diversifying, we are looking at other routes. But end of the day, the most economical, time-tested one is the Strait of Hormuz. So I think Prime Minister sitting with Mohammed bin Zayed and saying, we cannot accept this blackmail. Essentially what he's saying is, you can't block the Strait of Hormuz and, hold all of us to ransom like this.
And
I think the message is clear, both to the Iranians, to the Americans, even to our friends, the Israelis, we need to end this war, because otherwise we cannot reopen this, and it's
so we need to end this war. Yes, and remember the reiteration by Honorable Prime Minister that dialogue and diplomacy is the answer. Wagma, coming to you again. We heard that again today. And when Prime Minister also said that I've come to my second home, brother.
And what does it tell you, Sakal, which needs to be again driven home, since you're talking about homes?
Yeah.
The Indian Republic's head of government has made the first visit to the UAE since the cessation of war. Well, partial cessation, because we are still in limbo. But the first international visitor to the United Arab Emirates was the Indian Republic and Prime Minister Modi. That is a message being driven of confidence to Emiratis who are watching this today as such. Unlike its traditional security partners in the West, like London or DC or elsewhere, and yes, President Trump is currently in Beijing on his own visit, which was pre-planned, true. But India made the first visit to the UAE on the heels of this war, and a war which has had dire consequences for the UAE since its inception in 1971 as a state. It has really affected it adversely, but it has held strong, and it has maintained a position of stability through wedded to laws of governance and norms. And the UAE has not flouted any of that in its defensive posturing, not offensive posturing for the last 2 months of this war. That must be pointed out. The UAE has stayed its hand and with immense patience and grit, and done so.
Yes.
And it just shows that it is tied to normative clauses of governance, international governance, unlike other states who are belligerents.
Okay.
That needs to be pointed out.
Yes, the belligerence of other states, as pointed out by Wagma, Ambassador Chakrabarti. Your take on Prime Minister Modi's larger messaging amid West Asia war, that India believes in diplomacy, and the peace message. Do you think that is also one of the driving points of that short speech?
Yeah, absolutely, yes, because India has been making that point. This is not an era of war, is what PM told even President Putin when he talked to him or visited Moscow for the Ukraine war. We have been opposing all these wars. These help nobody, but these are all just geostrategic and geopolitical issues that sometimes have to be solved by the parties involved, and that is what we are saying, to sit down and sort it out. So diplomacy and dialogue has been our sort of leitmotif for a very long time. So I think that is the signaling we are doing. We are also ensuring that our own interests are protected in terms of our energy security, and that UAE is a vital partner in this aspect. So that's the message, and that's the purpose of this visit.
Dr. Cholio, so then what's going to happen to the Strait of Hormuz? Because, messages have been sent out clearly, but also we have the Iranian foreign minister in Delhi at the current time. So, diplomacy, it takes all forms, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Indian position has been, to take a neutral and balanced view of this. Of course, there was a military aggression and an attack on Iran, but that doesn't mean that the Iranians can then go out and, like I said, hold our present and future to hostage. So I think our messaging to both sides is that enough. I mean, the collateral damage, so-called collateral damage, is enormous. And the whole of Asia, especially, is in dire straits because of this. People using muscle power and their geographical position and weaponizing it to the detriment of others. So I think Prime Minister's message today in the UAE will get across, because what we are saying is there is a growing coalition of countries which don't want this war to go on forever, and I think the pressure is there on both the warring sides themselves to find some face-saving exit formula. So I think we would expect the Strait of Hormuz to reopen gradually, but it's been mined, and it's going to take, some are saying, weeks or even months before it can be really cleared, before the old routes can restart. So we are looking at alternatives. The Red Sea pathway is there, and we will also need to think about maybe around the Cape of Good Hope of south of the southern tip of Africa. It's going to increase the costs of freight, and it's going to increase the cost of shipping, and insurance is a problem. We are taking proactive measures. Government of India has started its own, sovereign-backed insurance scheme now for shipping, so that we are not dependent on European insurers who are all wary of this route altogether. And like I said, through our diplomacy, at least our vessels and the ones that are carrying oil and gas for us are coming through, and that's how we've been able to manage this crisis so far much better than most of the countries. So we have actually shown resilience as a country during a major world crisis, and I think a country like UAE and also all the Gulf countries and the ones in the region see that India has been able to absorb the shocks a lot better, and therefore we have more credibility, and also because of our neutrality or middle path, we have more credibility when we say international law should be respected. I think Prime Minister's point is going to echo across the region. It's not an era of war, it's also an era where UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, should be respected. And we consistently use that message, because that is how, if we don't stand for principles and everybody is out for the narrow self-interest, there is no world order anymore. The order has collapsed, right? So it's that kind of a critical moment. We are on the edge of the precipice mark. And this kind of relationship we have with UAE help to ensure, or at least shore up some elements of order. Otherwise, there's just chaos and anarchy.
A final word from you, Ambassador Pinakaranjan Chakravarti. These agreements that have been signed for petroleum as well as LPG, this is the post OPEC time for UAE. So, I mean, they are keen, obviously, to take their investments forward and trade in these products. But also, what are the routes that are going to be used to to finally deliver them to India?
Well, basically the Hormuz route is always there, but we have discussed earlier the Fujairah route, which needs to be ramped up because of the, either create pipelines or the port facilities which can take bigger ships and tankers, etc. I don't know the technical details of that, but I think that's the route that, if you go back to a little bit, you will know that Saudi Arabia built a pipeline from Dammam to, the eastern region where all their oil facilities are.
True.
To Yanbo is a port on the Red Sea.
I'm told we're running short of time, so let me get the final word in from Mr. Wagma about this. What route do you think all these petroleum products will take to reach India?
Ambassador Chakrabarti is right, so I'll very rapidly end up there. Fujairah is a traditional bunkering station for these outgoing routes. Khorfakan will pick up also, and plus the overland route of other diversified routes leading out from Abu Dhabi and ADNOC, with which India has tremendous investments now. We will see those bypassing the Strait of Hormuz, because it will still be seaborne trade. Because remember, Mark, LNG cannot be transported overland. It never can be, traditionally speaking, universally speaking, which is why Iran cannot export its LNG across the Caspian to Russia or elsewhere too, for instance.
Yes, Burzeen, I'm sorry I'm cutting you short here. We need to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Ambassador Chakravarti, Burzeen Wagma, and also Professor Sriram Cholya in our Delhi studio. With that, it's time to wrap up this special presentation, India-UAE Fueling the Future. But we continue to keep tracking Prime Minister Modi's UAE visit. Please stay with DD India. On the other side, News Live continues. Stay with us. Namaskar.